a little bit about growth mindset, because, we've talked about mindset before, but we didn't necessarily narrow it down into speaking about, the type of mindset that is needed for growth in your company. And so will you bring up our slides, please? Okay. So today's topic is the power of a growth mindset in business. And we are, again, focusing in on what it is that we can do as leaders in our companies, as company owners, to make sure that the focus for the mindset is going to give us back what it is that we have put into the business. And so the presentation itself really does explore, a transformative power, that which is in our growth mindset in the business world. We will really dive in today into the distinction between having a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. I think it's really important for you to understand the difference. And some people who think that they are operating out of a growth mindset will, after today's episode, realize that they have a little bit more work to do, because it's easy for you to shift that mindset from growth to fixed, especially when times are challenging. And so we want to learn, how do we embrace the growth mindset, and so we can fuel our innovation, make sure that we can bolster our resilience and remain adaptable. And this is really, really important, because if you cannot do this, then what happens is you'll stifle the growth of your company, and you will find out that, everything will be affected. Every part of the company will be affected if the mindset of the leaders are not, set up properly. So let's look at the difference between the fixed and the growth mindset. A fixed mindset is really one in which an individual believes that their abilities are innate and unchangeable. In other words, they believe that there is, a such thing as a person who is born to be a leader, or a person who is not capable of, growing beyond a certain stage, because of the fact that this is just how they are, or it's just who I am. People with a fixed mindset often avoid challenges. They don't see themselves as very ambitious, and they really give up easily when they're faced with setbacks. Something happens and they decide, I'm just going to shut it all down. It wasn't for me to begin with. This is the reason why I know it's not for me, because if it were, I wouldn't have all these challenges. Things wouldn't be working out this way if this were for me, I have seen it. I have seen it when working with people, where they get to year 3 and things start seemingly falling apart because of a challenge or a pandemic or whatever. Something happens, where the stock market crashes, or, external things are going on. And those external things that are going on may have an effect on the internal things that are happening with them. And so with that said, what ends up occurring is they begin to, go inside and say, well, you know what? Why did you even try to do this? You should have known better. This is not something that's for you. This is for people who are, born entrepreneurs. Okay. If there's such a thing. But there is a mindset that is ever becoming more familiar, to people, in this particular era, if I can say it that way, of entrepreneurs, that is called the growth mindset. And people with a growth mindset see their abilities as malleable and capable of development. They see themselves as a person who is able to learn from others, to learn from situations, and they embrace the challenges as opportunities for learning and growth. And so I remember I mentioned this in another podcast earlier this week, um, well, when I was talking about, leadership and actually, succession and things of that nature, and I talked about how when I had a little group of parenting group called Pros, Parents Responding to Opportunities for Success, and when we would see children doing things that were what we would consider, not the optimal thing for our children to be doing, things that we absolutely didn't want to see them participating in. I mean, they were just being obstinate or just disobedient or saying things that they shouldn't say. We would call those things opportunities for growth. We would say that they were in a position where they had an opportunity to grow, and we were going to make this a character building moment, and so in business, a lot of the things that we experience that we think are barriers or challenges are really just opportunities for learning and growth. And when we see it that way, then it opens up other, possibilities, and it causes us to move forward in ways that, are going to be sometimes, tremendously beneficial to our companies and to the people that we work with. Okay, so what are the beliefs and abilities that shape leadership? Let's talk about the fixed mindset leaders, okay? They may exhibit a fear of failure. They may resist new ideas. They may focus on maintaining control. I tell you, control sometimes, or maintaining control sometimes, can be one of the largest barriers to growth that you might ever experience, because what happens is that you view being out of control as something that makes you a poor leader. And some things, just being honest with you, are just not within the immediate control of the leader. There are things that will happen, and there's nothing that you can do about what happened, but you can control the destiny of that thing. What it was designed to do and what it actually does are two completely different things. And so when you are in a position where you're able to see, that if something happened and it is a perceived failure, you can control the destiny of that perceived failure by allowing it to be a growth moment. Okay. So, but you can also use it as feedback. Giving you the ability to see, okay, if we do it this way, then this what could possibly happen. But by using that information to rebuild what it is that you're working with, it can position you differently in the landscape of what it is that you're doing. Now, growth mindset leaders, they encourage experimentation, they foster open communication, they prioritize continuous learning. They are ones that see situations as a part of the bigger picture, as opposed to an end, to anything. Okay. And so knowing that you don't ever arrive and that you're always ever arriving in business, you want to make sure that everything is a part of a continuum inside of your business. And when you look at the impact that it has on your decision making, your beliefs and your abilities, you can understand, how strategic thinking, adaptability, and willingness to embrace risk can really flow to you as a part of your growth mindset. It's very important that you remain willing, okay, to, embrace something new, to see something different that could possibly leave your company in a position where you are now at the top of the choices that people want to make when they come into the industry that you're in. So how do we foster growth mindset in the workplace? What is it that we can do? Well, the first thing we can do is encourage feedback. Creating a culture where feedback is welcome, is important, because when you get your teams that are working with you, whether you have, contractors or employees or people who are brought on, as volunteers, depending on the kind of industry you're in and the type of business you have to help to create the culture that you want. And when you create a culture where, you welcome people giving you feedback, that is really going to foster growth in your company, but it's also going to foster a growth mindset within the people in your company. When you can promote learning and development, you're able to invest in teams that are working with you, or even if they are vendors or even if they are collaborators, you're investing in them by making sure that there are training programs available, workshops, mentorship opportunities, even if you're not the one who is doing the mentoring or, creating the workshop, or for that matter, creating the YouTube videos, you want to make sure they know that they're available. I remember when I was working in a particular position as a strategist, and they were utilizing a particular vendor who provided some wonderful training videos for how to use their product. And that wasn't necessarily something that was done, with the financial gain in mind, but knowing that if they provided these training videos to their customers, the customers could then train their staff and how to utilize the product safely and how to use it properly. It made a good bit of difference within the teams that were doing the work, because now they felt capable of using this particular tool to do a good job at what they were assigned to do. And so when you can invest in training programs, sometimes it doesn't cost you anything, to provide a platform for the people that you're working with to understand what it is that you're doing. And it's very important that you are mentoring and creating opportunities so that their skills are being, enhanced and bolstered, because for them, when they feel more capable, they do a good job. When they understand, how to do what they're doing better, then it makes it easier for them to seamlessly fit into the landscape of what's happening in your company. And then you want to celebrate achievements and failures. Okay. Now, remember what I taught about failure. Failure is feedback. So when you are, looking at something, that has happened, and I have laughed at myself when I failed at things, or laughed when the team went after doing something and it didn't quite come out the way that we wanted. It produced a different set of results than we were looking for, but we found ways to use those results and not waste them. Because when you can acknowledge the successes and acknowledge the setbacks, learn from the mistakes, celebrate the milestones, what is happening is you are fostering that mindset that you want the team to have, the growth mindset. And you can only do that when you have a healthy view of an achievement and a failure, or a perceived failure, because some of the things that we perceive as failures are really not that. I can just tell you that for sure. And then you can encourage risk-taking and innovation, because when you do that, people feel safe, when they are working out things. I never forget, I gave a task for one of our team members to, send out some emails, and really, we were just beginning to learn how to use that system. And so there were lots of things that we just didn't know. And so when the emails went out, there was this particular line on the email that shouldn't have probably been in the email. It was a part of the template, and we didn't realize that that was what it meant when it was in brackets. So that was a part of the template. So that was a learning experience for all of us. When it came across, we were like, oh, okay, that wasn't supposed to be in there. So we had to notify, everyone who would be using the software that, okay, anything in brackets, we have to replace with what we want to be there, as opposed to leaving it there because that was a part of the template. So when we make it safe for people to, participate in what we're doing in a way that is, non-lethal. Okay. I call it lethal when people are trying to participate and you create these tense situations so that they're afraid to make a mistake or afraid to even step out further into what it is that they're doing or even to suggest anything, which is counterproductive to what you want as a business owner or as an executive. You want to foster, a mindset that gives people the ability to want to put forth something new, and to extend their ideas, to the group. So, what about resilience and adaptability? How does this foster into the growth mindset? Well, when you can embrace change, okay, then it really does allow for there to be a better culture of, growth in your company. It allows businesses, to adapt to the changing market conditions and embrace new technologies or new tools or concepts that come to bear that can help you while you're going through something that is a changing, ever changing, ecosystem in business. You also can teach people how to overcome setbacks. We have one of our free courses that we give on our website has to do with how do you respond after a workplace failure, or what's considered to be a crisis. What is it that you can do to overcome something that happens? I mean, there are whole companies that exist right now that they didn't shut the company down when there was a huge company issue. And when I talk about huge company issues, let's talk about people who may be in certain types of businesses where, there was a data breach or a leak. They don't shut the whole company down because there's a data breach or a leak. They overcome the setback with, whatever the, things that they can do, being done, and things that they cannot do. They explain that and they try to provide for their customers any type of remedy or, even sometimes settlements when it has produced material harm. And so having the growth mindset, it will enable you in your organization to learn from the failures and to learn from the, things that even are, perceived as, game ending or game changing situations, but use them as the opportunity for improvement so that that same thing doesn't happen the next time. And then for sustained growth, resilience and adaptability are crucial for long-term success in rapidly evolving business landscapes. It is just so important for people to understand that they need to be resilient and they need to be pliable, flexible, adaptable, because we don't ever know when something is going to evolve. And because we are in a situation where these things happen, we have to be able to learn how to, become fluid. That's the word I was looking for. How do we become fluid? How do we, flow in the, times of change? So how do we embrace innovation, through our growth mindset? Well, one of the things as an owner, I will say to you, and even people who you may not be an owner, but you may be an executive working in a company, you need to be open to ideas. I mean, some things, that we've been doing the same way for the last 30 years become very different based on what's now happening in society, what now may be happening in, the country that we're living in. Okay. What might also be happening in the industry. Things change. Some things become outlawed. And as a result of that, we end up in a situation where we have to do something different. And having a growth mindset encourages exploration. And it encourages us to, come up with an unconventional solution for a problem. And so we've got to be thinking, that you can't always be in a position where you want all of the ideas to come from you. Not if you want to be a growth mindset person, okay, and a company of growth. You are going to have to allow some of those ideas to come from the wonderful people that you chose to work alongside of you, because in the team, you will probably find everything you need when you are having to work towards a solution to a problem. You'll be surprised when you open up the floor for, suggestions, what comes from those people who are a part of that, proverbial team. So, be open to new ideas, and have a culture of experimentation and learning, having brainstorming sessions or times where you are there to, talk about how certain things can be done differently, is key, because it allows the businesses to learn from trial and error. It allows them to be in a position, to say, okay, we tried this didn't work. We looked at that doesn't work. What does work? And when you are positioning yourself to do that, then what happens is that other things now, unintended things, become possible because of the fact that you've opened up the company, to allow that experimentation to come forth. Okay. And I have to say this, for some people who are concerned about, well, if I allow people to experiment, they can mess stuff up. Let me just say to you that you use a sandbox, do it in a controlled environment so that you're not allowing it to get out before the testing phase. We're not out allowing people to go and just go rogue and do things, without us looking at what they've done first and testing it to make sure it's going to work for the customer. But what I will tell you is this: when you participate in allowing your teams, to have access to, good trial runs, and, the ability to, have the alpha stage and the beta stage, after they introduced a potential solution to a problem, it gives everyone the ability to see the process and to understand what goes on, in the process. And of course, we want to make sure that we have continuous improvement. Innovation is an ongoing process. It's fueled by, having that commitment to, having a continuum of growth. And when you allow people to play, there are amazing things that come forth. And I use that word because 100% of the things that I learned about computers, and I have built computers, I've built out PCs, and I never went to school to do that. And I learned how to do it from playing. I'll put it that way. Okay. From getting into some really good, classes online, and then having my tools and everything on the side and tearing it down and putting it back together, adding memory, doing different types of things to see if I could create the box that, I wanted. And then of course, I have been a proponent of using a Mac computer since the 70s, but I had other people who were in my life that needed to use a PC. So my thing is you're going to have one, you're going to have the best doggone one that's out there. And so I, did the things that I knew to do to build out the system that was going to serve us better. And so we were using servers and things back in those days, because, that's the type of work that we were doing, where we had to have our own servers until we started co-locating servers for the work that we were doing. But I will tell you that I learned a lot from playing. And that playing that I did in the space of tech, I was able to translate some of the things that I learned there into what it is that I do in other areas. And so there is a transference of skills that comes with having a continuous improvement ecosystem in your company. When you are able to embrace innovation through a growth mindset, it affects everything that you do. So what are our takeaways today? Well, the things that we're going to do to really be able to put this forward is to embrace challenges as opportunities for learning. We are not going to look at barriers or perceived barriers as a stopping point. We are going to be paying attention to the fact that everything we experience is always going to be an opportunity for the next experience. We're going to focus on developing skills and knowledge and celebrate our successes and learn from our setbacks. And then we're going to encourage feedback. Okay. Failure is feedback, and create a culture of continuous improvement along the way. And lastly, we're going to foster the mindset of resilience and adaptability to navigate change effectively, because we cannot we can't control our markets. We can't control our industries, and we can't even control what goes on in our country or the world for that matter. But what we can do is control our response to it and make sure that whatever the destiny of those things are, it is going to benefit us and not be a detriment. Well, this has been Dr. Patience Jackson Rose with Co-working Live with Red Worldwide, and we'll see you again next time.